All right, Mets fans, welcome back to the True Mets Talk podcast. Breaking news here. The New York Mets have officially signed infielder and third baseman now for the New York Mets, Bo Bichette, to a short-term 3-year deal with opt-outs worth $126 million. The 27-year-old is taking a chance on himself, especially with those opt-outs, and we will see what the future holds. But the 2026 Mets lineup objectively, whether you like the fit, and we will discuss the infield fit here with Bo Bichette on the Mets in just a second and what that could mean for this team moving forward in this offseason, because this move indicates more things to come for the New York Mets, whether it's in the outfield or whether it is on the starting pitching market. But objectively, with his bat, he makes this lineup better. He slots right into the three-hole right after Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto, and he is a premier bat that David Stearns was able to acquire and directly pivot the day after, wasting no time after missing out on Kyle Tucker. So this was a live stream that I really didn't expect to make and hop on here to discuss this with you all, but the Mets, they saw the opportunity, especially after missing out on a Kyle Tucker deal that was really very competitive alongside the Dodgers, and they take him away from not only Toronto, but also the Philadelphia Phillies, who were meeting with Bo Bichette in this week leading up to him signing with the New York Mets. Nobody saw this coming, said Frankie. Wow. And my guy Josh is saying, Bo, he is him. Listen, I really like this addition, especially from the offensive standpoint. We do have to talk about Brett Baty. We have to talk about Jorge Polanco, and we have to talk about the infield configuration. But I definitely appreciate you all being here with me on this lovely Friday. What a great week, or I guess day, to start off the weekend, especially after we thought everything was going to be doomy and gloomy when we got the news that Kyle Tucker was headed to LA. I dropped the video, the reaction video about Kyle Tucker going to LA. If you missed it, it is on my channel. I was sad. I had no words. I was shocked. But this brings my spirits back up just a little bit because, as you see here from Will Salmon, with the Mets, Bo Bichette is expected to play third base. League sources said, pending physical. This deal is pending a physical. This has been an absolutely wild offseason for the Mets. I mean, so many moving parts. And to say that this is a wild turn of events, right, that Will Salmon is saying, is an understatement. It's an absolute understatement right now. But the Mets do get a premium player that they coveted on a short-term deal. So still, this short-term philosophy from David Stearns still holds true. This is a 3-year deal with an opt-out after the first year and after the second year. And that is very interesting for a 27-year-old ball player that is coming off of a really, really good season, honestly. And I'm kind of shocked that he didn't take any long-term deals if he had any on the table, because this would have been the time to do it. And the Toronto Blue Jays organization and their fans have to be livid right now. And you know who also has to be livid? The New York Yankees. Because guess what? Now that is going to be an AL East battle for Cody Bellinger's services between Toronto and the New York Yankees. The Mets were not waiting around. I made a video that I was going to release today at 1 o'clock before this news even hit, and I scrapped it because now we have to talk about Bo Bichette. But I talked about the pivot points being the starting rotation for the New York Mets moving forward. I didn't see this fit with Bo Bichette, especially after the Marcus Semien trade and the Jorge Polanco signing. And I knew, and I still don't think, right, because Cody Bellinger is still on the market, they're demanding a 7-year deal. The Yankees probably right now, from what I've heard, are around 5 years with opt-outs for Cody Bellinger. Scott Boras and Cody Bellinger are holding out for 7 years. There's no chance the Mets would even come close to that. And so this is why this is a really good move in my eyes for the Mets to just get this out of the way and build this lineup. Because now you have Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, Bo Bichette, and Jorge Polanco as your projected top four. And Polanco as your cleanup hitter, it doesn't really move me. I think he's better suited as a 5 hitter. And I guess if Mark Vientos is going to be a DH in any sort of capacity, you can make him the cleanup hitter if you believe in his ability to get back to the 2024 version of himself. But there's no question about it. Bo Bichette makes this team better. Let's talk about defensively how this is going to shake out. This is what I don't understand, because as much as I love this signing, I talked about Bo Bichette earlier this offseason in a video. I didn't link it in the description. You can go back and check it out after you watch this stream. But we talked about it because we were hearing some rumors, but this was months ago that we were talking about Bo Bichette potentially being a New York Met. And then everything went quiet, especially after the Brandon Nimmo for Marcus Semien trade went down and after they acquired the 2-year deal for Jorge Polanco, and they gave him that 2-year deal. Because this infield is crowded. You have your, up the middle duo, your double play combo, Gold Glove double play combo, might I add, and Francisco Lindor and Marcus Semien. Listen, I don't think you trade for Marcus Semien with the intention of not playing him. So come opening day, and barring anything unforeseen production-wise, those are going to be your 2 guys up the middle, Marcus Semien and Francisco Lindor. And Marcus Semien, I know he hasn't really had a great time with the bat as of recent, especially last season, but I think he has more to offer, especially when you lower him in the lineup. If Marcus Semien is a number 7 hitter on this team, I'm not complaining. Maybe even number 6, depending on what happens with Francisco Alvarez. That is... Now you're starting to build the depths of your lineup there, which is what was lacking last season in 2025. But what happens in the corner infield? Because this has huge, and I mean huge, implications for Brett Baty. Huge. And I know a lot of Mets fans are panicking right now. But if you've heard any Mets content creator talk about Brett Baty being involved in trades, it's probably going to be... I'm probably going to be on the list somewhere there, right? Because I've been talking about Brett Baty as a part of trade negotiations for quite some time. And before I go ahead and continue this stream, and see, Joel is already beating me to it. Baty getting traded. Did the fans force this deal? We have to talk about Brett Baty. We have to. There's been a lot of Mets content creators talking about Brett Baty and his future. Now, with the infield the way that it was set up before this Bo Bichette signing, it was very easy to foresee a controllable young player in Brett Baty getting that chance, especially coming off of such a great season, a career high in home runs, and just a really all-around bounce-back performance. The first time that we've seen it in his career, really, right? Since he's come up towards the tail end of that 2022 season. But now it begs the question, is Brett Baty going to be dangled out there on the trade block for either starting pitching help or outfield help? Now, we know the Marlins, listen, a lot of teams want Brett Baty. A lot of teams are going to want Brett Baty, especially with the controllability, especially that he proved that he has something on the table to offer, not only defensively, he's a good defender, but with his bat and what he did in 2025. The Marlins were interested in Brett Baty in the Edward Cabrera deal. The Mets said no thank you, right? The Mets said absolutely no thank you. So maybe they're trying to go bigger here. What does going bigger in this situation, more so than Edward Cabrera, mean? I have no idea. A lot of speculation surrounding Jarren Duran and his future in Boston. This could be a trade that you send Brett Baty, maybe even plus over for Jarren Duran. There's a lot of starting pitching, I guess, trades still out there that could happen, that Brett Baty could definitely sweeten the pot in terms of being a main piece going over to any team. But right now, the corner infield is set with guys that have not played those respective positions at all in their career at the major leagues, right? And a lot of people are also speculating, because I just saw the SNY Mets account put out a potential lineup for the Mets in 2026 with Brett Baty playing first base. Highly doubt that's going to happen. Highly doubt that's going to happen. I have not seen, at least publicly, anything to suggest that Brett Baty is working on first base drills this offseason to prepare for that. We've seen those videos come out of Jorge Polanco getting those reps. We heard Will Salmon and other reporters saying the Mets are going to give Jorge Polanco a shot at first base. Can he still DH for this team? Yes, absolutely. That's still a possibility for Polanco. But I do not see at all Brett Baty playing first base. Just like I don't see him transitioning for the first time in his career to left field, because that is still a wide open hole in this, on this team is left field. So this is insane. This is actually an insane deal. It kind of goes against the defensive philosophy and the run prevention that David Stearns has preached. And maybe he says, listen, I have such a good defensive up the middle duo that I can get away with Bo Bichette playing his first career innings at the major league level at third base, and same thing with Jorge Polanco at first base. But if that's the case, you probably need to get a little bit more so of a defensive-minded left fielder. You have great defense up the middle, whether it's Carson Bench or Tyrone Taylor. You have okay, I would say average defense, although he's getting better in Juan Soto in right field. Left field is a big question mark. And I'm not going to talk about the rotation in this stream, but we all know, and Steve Phillips recently went on MLB Network and said that he sees the Mets and the Orioles, being the main players right now, and it'll come down between them for Framber Valdez. A lot of smoke surrounding Freddie Peralta in this rotation. And Baty will not go in a trade to the Brewers for Freddie Peralta. Their infield is set over there in Milwaukee, so they have no use for Brett Baty, barring anything unforeseen. But yeah, that's where I don't understand this. So my eyes go directly to Brett Baty. But to go against that point, right? So that is the Brett Baty trade conversation. To go against that, does it make sense to take a chance of letting Brett Baty go, given the youth, right? Given the age, given the controllability, if Bo Bichette has opt-outs after the first 2 years? He's not guaranteed to be here long-term. I guess you could say this is a prove-it-year deal, for Bichette. Even though it's a 3-year deal, he still gets 2 chances to opt out. And so that's where I'm kind of scratching my head, and that makes me a little bit worried. Because if you use Brett Baty to go out there and get better at other positions, I'm completely okay with it. I've been okay with it from the start. I'm not going to backtrack on that now. But if Bo Bichette, let's say, opts out after the first year, and you've already traded Brett Baty this offseason because you thought Bo Bichette was going to be here, then you're out of a third baseman. So that's where things get a little tricky. Unless they have this vision of Jet Williams playing third base, which I can't see. I think he's going to be used in the outfield at some sort of capacity if he's not traded in 2026. We know Reimer is coming up through the wings of this farm system, but when is he really going to be ready to make a contribution? That is the thought that is in the back of my head, because the opt-out has to happen first, but clearly we have to just talk about what's in front of us, and that Bo Bichette is going to be playing his first career innings at third base on a major league diamond for the New York Mets, on a team that David Stearns said he wanted to prioritize run prevention for. That is the one drawback of what has me wondering why this signing happened. But I'm sure there's rhyme or reason. You don't make this move unless it was a complete panic move and they knew that Cody Bellinger, they were not going to get anywhere close to what Cody Bellinger wanted with those reports of him wanting a 7-year deal. And they said, we need to get somebody after Kyle Tucker went to LA, and it was a panic move. But from what we've seen from David Stearns, I mean, there's a method to the madness. Do we all always appreciate the method? No, but there has to be more moves coming here offensively. We know that there's going to be a pitching move to some sort of degree. We don't know exactly what's going to happen in the outfield, and that's where I can see the Mets using Brett Baty as a supplemental tool on the trade block to get better. Really. Let's see here. Let's get to the comments. Stevie's saying, I really think Stearns is protecting things with negotiations coming up soon. I think you're talking about the CBA. Joel's asking, who's the third baseman for the Brewers? That is Caleb Durbin, if I'm not mistaken, the guy that they got, the prospect that they got, who actually had a pretty good season in exchange for Devin Williams last offseason. Lord is saying, where's he going to play? Not second, not shortstop, third. Got Baty there unless Baty is going to get traded. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. So this is what doesn't make sense to me is what happens with Brett Baty. I don't think he's going to left field. I don't think he's playing, first base. You have to trade Brett Baty at this point, you would have to imagine, no? That's really the simplest answer. And if you do that, you're taking a humongous risk because Bo Bichette has multiple opt-outs here. He has multiple opt-outs. So now I'm not going to float this idea out there because this is like 3 years time from now, but I'm pretty sure in 2028, when this payroll goes down significantly, not that we're payroll watching because the Mets were just willing to fork up $55 million to Kyle Tucker, but the payroll is going to decrease significantly for the Mets in 2028, right around that time. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to have to fact check this, but I think a big time third baseman is going to be on the market in 2028, which again, these 3-year deals that David Stearns is giving out directly plays into that. 2029. It's Jose Ramirez, if you are not picking up on the context clues. But I don't want to talk about 2029. I want to talk about 2026. Ilmatic says Brett Baty plus some prospects is going to get traded to Boston for Duran. That's very highly likely. I think that is probably the most logical thing to happen here. That is also a question within itself. Are you willing to do that? I know a lot of Mets fans are going to say that's a dumb move, but if we're talking about filling the holes of this roster strictly, it makes sense. It makes sense. Team is full of infielders, 100%, Lord. Let's see here. Mr. Classic, regardless, the Mets have done something wonderful through all the Tucker turmoil. Yeah, like I said, if you guys are just joining me here, in the first couple of minutes of this stream, I made the video yesterday night talking about my reaction to the Tucker signing, and it's just been kind of like shrugging my shoulders. Like, what can you do? Not really much excitement, but this brings the excitement, at least for me. I'm not sure how you all feel. Let me know how you feel. At least for me, this brings some excitement back. Is Bo Bichette the most perfect fit? The answer is probably not. And that's why we're talking about Brett Baty and what the infield configuration is going to be like right here on this stream. But at least it makes the lineup better. And it takes him away from the Phillies organization who was pursuing him. And now we get to watch the Toronto Blue Jays and the Yankees battle it out for Cody Bellinger. This is exactly what Scott Boras wanted for Cody Bellinger. This situation exactly. Let these teams in the AL East battle it out for Cody Bellinger. The Mets were never going to be involved. And Heyman keeps pushing this narrative of, what the Mets pivot point could have been. And he was talking about Cody Bellinger. He just wanted to attach the Mets in the Bellinger sweepstakes to up the price for Bellinger in the eyes of the Yankees and maybe even the Blue Jays. That's all it was from Heyman. Joel's saying, if Bo Bichette opts out of $47 million, he had an MVP year. I'm not quite sure if I agree with that. I think he wants the years in the end. He's 27 years old, and he's going to want a long-term contract. If he has a decent year, and if he follows up last season with the bat in 2026, he's going to get a 10-year deal, most likely, I would think. on the market next offseason. You would have to imagine, or somewhere close to that. 8 to 10 years for Bo Bichette. And that's what he ultimately wants. So I think this speaks volumes. Him taking this deal with the Mets speaks volumes to what his market was with other teams. Now, I'm actually kind of surprised here that the Blue Jays didn't do everything in their best interest or put their best foot forward to getting this deal done, given what happened with Kyle Tucker. But maybe Bo Bichette felt some disrespect from the Blue Jays organization. He said, screw you. I'm not going to give you this opportunity. I'm taking the Mets deal. And who knows if the Blue Jays would have even gave him $40+ million a year. Who knows? Is Bo Bichette really worth $40+ million a year? I think, in my opinion, I think that this is an objective statement. I don't think Bo Bichette's worth what the Mets are going to pay him, but it's a short-term deal. And we know the Mets do not care as long as they are committing money to the short term and not adding any contracts to the long term. $55 million offer a year for Kyle Tucker, 40+ for Bo Bichette, no problem. This is why when Mets fans go onto social media and complain about Steve Cohen, and David Stearns collectively, that's fine. And complaining about what the plan is fine, but you cannot deny that they're still willing to spend money. They have told us, and they've told the rest of the league that they are willing to spend money. That's not the issue. So now we just have to worry about what the overall configuration of this roster is going to be moving forward. So this is true too. With the way the MLB contracts are going right now, almost no player. Do you think Kyle Tucker is worth anything close to $60 million in what he's getting and what the Mets actually offered him? Because the Mets offered him a front-loaded contract with $60 million for the first 2 years, just like the Dodgers did. He's not worth that. He's getting paid more than Juan Soto AAV. That's ridiculous. But that's what these MLB contracts are right now, unfortunately, until the CBA kicks in after, this season. The Blue Jays have put other free agents as priorities over Bo Bichette, and maybe Bo Bichette feels some sort of way about it. I don't know. I would love to see this happen. If the Mets somehow went out there and said, screw you all, screw you Dodgers, we're going to go out there and get Cody Bellinger in addition to Bo Bichette, I'm back in. I'm fully bought in. Like this Bo Bichette signing makes me happy because the Mets are actually doing something and they're trying to compete at least. We'll see what happens on the rotation front. But if they go out there and get Cody Bellinger, that is a fantastic lineup. Fantastic lineup. And if you are banking on a Francisco Alvarez bounce back season alongside Mark Vientos, if that happens, this lineup is deep, especially with Carson Bench coming into the fold and adding Marcus Semien to the bottom of this lineup. So I don't see it happening, Lord. I'm going to say this until it actually does happen, but I don't see it happening. I think that's a Blue Jays versus Yankees battle that the Mets don't want any part of right now. Trey saying, I don't trade Baty unless we get Skubal or Joe Ryan. Again, the whole Skubal conversation is going to be very, very interesting. We know he's a rental. We know coming off of back-to-back Cy Youngs. And we know that the Dodgers are still lurking. I think per executives, the Dodgers actually just got named the best farm system in baseball. I'm sure the Mets are number 2. But the Dodgers and the Mets farm systems are about neck and neck right now. And will David Stearns want to part ways with the prospects necessary to make that happen? That I'm still maybe not convinced of, especially with only 1 year left on his deal. Let's take a look at this because we see what happened here. Let me just check Twitter real quick to make sure we're not seeing any other updates that I'm missing here. I appreciate you all being here on the live stream. Yeah, see, this doesn't make sense. I'm looking at the SNY Mets account, and it says that Brett Baty is projected to play first base, batting 6th behind Francisco Alvarez. I don't like that. I don't like that lineup. They're also projecting Carson Bench to be the left fielder come opening day. And I think that would be a mistake. I think that if the Mets really want to show that they are serious to the, highest degree of this season, Benj will be in a platoon in his rookie season with Tyrone Taylor up the middle in center field. Heyman is giving credit to Will Salmon for being first on Bo Bichette. Yeah, like we have to wait for Will Salmon or Jeff Passan for anything Mets related. That is 100% accurate. Just hold on, everyone. Sorry to pause this real quick because I'm just looking at if we have any other details. Steve Gelb saying he'd be surprised if Brett Baty was moved unless if it was for someone major, a major player. Again, so this is my thing, is that let's look at Brett Baty. Like right now, he has no position unless the Mets are going to sell us on him being a first baseman. He's not a free agent until after the 2029 season. So you're talking about 26, 27, 28, 29. You're talking about 4 years left of control left for Brett Baty. You're not going to just let him ride the bench on this team. You're not going to do that. You wouldn't sign Bo Bichette if that's even a possibility, especially given all the other holes on this roster. Listen, this is the point of the offseason where it's the tail end of free agency. Yes, there's free agents left. The caliber of players outside of guys like Framber and Cody Bellinger, there's a tremendous drop-off there when you talk about the rest of the field. And you have to get creative at this point if you're David Stearns and the Mets via trades. So I find it hard to believe. Yes, it's shocking. I agree with that, but I find it hard to believe the Mets make this move without entertaining at least the thought of Brett Baty being traded. That's it. He's not going to be a bench player for you, especially coming off of the year that he had in 2025. And right now, his trade value, objectively, is the highest it's ever been with what he just did. So I know a lot of Mets fans are attached to Brett Baty. I think he's going to have a tremendous season, regardless of what uniform he puts on. But given the other holes on this roster, that conversation needs to happen. But let's take a look at these numbers from Bo Bichette over the past 3 seasons. I mean, 2024 was an abysmal season. He's age 27, right? He's 27 years old. 2024 was horrendous. I mean, 225 batting average, 599 OPS. I mean, I'm sure he was hurt. He only had 311 at-bats there. So the sample size really might have not been there. So I'm just going to forget that season happened. But 2023 and 2025, that's good production right there. That's really good production from the bat of Bo Bichette. And if I'm not mistaken, he has led the American League in hits multiple times in his young career so far. So he is a hit machine. For those of you all who really value batting average, you see 306 and 311 and, American League hits leader multiple times, you're probably smiling. But for the numbers that I care about, can he give you upwards of 20 home runs? He came a little bit short of that in 2025. He did it in 2023. Yes, there's some power there. We know that. Can he hit for average? Yes. Can he get on base at a consistent above league average clip? Yes. You see that in 2 of these past 3 seasons. And the OPS. Can he put the ball in the gap consistently and give you not only home runs, but also extra base hits? The answer is yes. 814 and 840 OPS respectively in 2023 and 2025. Like I mentioned, the bat is not the question of this signing. It's the glove. And it is David Stearns really okay with playing 2 guys that are brand new to those positions in the corner infield? My guy, Rob. What's up, Rob? By the way, we are doing a Hot Stove live stream today. Rob and I will be on stream together. I believe we set it for 6:45, which definitely works for me. I'll get back to you on the messages, Rob, on that. But expect us to go live tonight, breaking down and giving our 2 cents together about this Bo Bichette signing and what it means for the New York Mets moving forward. Love the bat. Now, who gets traded? Baty? I think the answer is absolutely yes, and we will expand on that in the stream later. So if you don't subscribe to either Rob or myself, if you're new to either of our channels, which I'm sure most of you are not, make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications buttons on both of our channels, not just mine, but also Rob's, to get notified when we go live, whether it's separately or whether it is together, like will be happening tonight. Salute to my guy, Darren. I appreciate you, member of the channel, always for the support, Darren. I definitely appreciate that. Let's get into the Savant page real quick of Bo Bichette, because he's got an unusual swing, and that's one thing that I always found weird about Bo Bichette, but he gets it done somehow. I mean, you look at his Savant page. I highly encourage you all. After this stream is done, I'll drop the link. Actually, let me just drop this link right now in the chat. Control C, Control V, in case you all want to follow along with what I'm saying here. You take a look at the hard hit rate. Basically, since he's entered the league, where league average is 37% hard hit percentage, this guy has been consistently 40 plus. You know, in 2021, or 2022, he was 50.3. Last year, 48.8. This guy hits the ball really hard. And the way baseball works, generally, we're talking about expected statistics here, but if you hit the ball hard, good things will happen. Sometimes it'll go directly into a glove, but most of the time, you'll find some green in the outfield. But the strikeout rate, this is what I wanted to sort of get into right here. You know, 2022 at 22.2% above league average, or right around league average, it's been trending downward every year. So he's making adjustments and he's being a little bit more selective. You see an inverse relationship between the strikeout rate and the walk rate for Bo Bichette. He doesn't take many walks. He's still below league average in that aspect. But as his career is going onward, he's being more selective. And as a result, he's still hitting the ball hard and he's striking out less. So that is what I look for when I take a look at Baseball Savant, because it's awesome to talk about the numbers that are in front of you right here to the left of me. But the process of how these guys are at the plate. Can they get on base consistently? Will they be striking out in big situations, especially if you're going to be batting behind Lindor and Juan Soto? That is what we need to also take into consideration here when we're talking about this signing. Now, let's go to, I'm actually curious here because I don't know the answer here myself. Let's take a look at some of the clutch numbers and runners in scoring position numbers, because that's what everybody, especially Mets fans, with the struggles that this team has had with runners in scoring position, especially last year in the first half, everyone wants to know, how does Bo Bichette fare in those situations? He's great versus lefties and righties. He hit 312 versus righties last season versus 308 versus lefties. Very even there. 891 OPS versus 825 OPS. Lefties was 891, righties was 825. So this guy handles both sides of, you know, pitcher's arms well, whether it's lefty or righty. So that's a really good, versatile characteristic about Bo Bichette's bat. Now let's take a look at some of the clutch numbers here. Scrolling down, sorry for that. Runners in scoring position. Runners in scoring position for Bo Bichette. Ladies and gentlemen, he hit 381 with over 1,000 OPS with runners in scoring position for the Toronto Blue Jays last year. Can I just say that one more time for you all? The glove aside, this guy's bat is so good. Runners in scoring position, 381 batting average, over 1,000 OPS, 626 slugging percentage. That is a bat that I want in my lineup, and clearly David Stearns did as well. 2 outs, runners in scoring position. So now we're getting into real clutch numbers here for Bo Bichette last year as a Toronto Blue Jay. 2 outs, runners in scoring position, 306 batting average with a 966 OPS. Late and close ball games, 325 batting average, 912 OPS. And he hit 274 with a 738 OPS in tie ball games. This guy is the definition of putting up clutch numbers last year. So hopefully that continues. Hopefully that trend continues. But, everyone wants to talk about the overall numbers here, the home runs. Can he put over 20 home runs over the fence? That remains to be seen. How does he fit into this lineup behind two really powerful hitters in Lindor and Soto? Can he drive them in? Can he be a run producer for the New York Mets? Yes. Yes, he can. Yes, he can. It's a clutch bat. That's it. Those numbers speak for themselves. I love it. I love it. So, a lot of questions about the roster moving forward, especially surrounding Brett Baty. It's not a lock, and I'm not going to say it's a lock for them to trade Baty. He could still be on this roster in some capacity that we just don't know about. But it's becoming increasingly clear that at least they might be entertaining that to backfill the rest of the holes on this roster. Listen, this is a really good start. I understand we're still upset about Kyle Tucker. If you asked me who I would rather have between Bo Bichette and Kyle Tucker, it's clearly Kyle Tucker. But the Mets get this deal done. The most important thing, and this is what Rob always says. I'm not sure if Rob is still listening, but this has to please Rob. I didn't get a chance to listen to what Rob said on his live stream as he broke this down, I don't know, about 30 to 40 minutes ago. But this is an example of David Stearns and the Mets not waiting around for things to happen and having an immediate backup plan. And let's be honest, overpaying just a little bit to get this guy in the doors when they figured out that Kyle Tucker was not going to be a New York Met. This is them being aggressive. Just like the Blue Jays did with a guy like Dylan Cease from the pitching side, the Mets now do it, and they do it on their terms and parameters by staying true to the David Stearns 2 to 3 year deal philosophy. So this is them being ultra aggressive and trying to make this lineup better. And I can respect that at the very minimum. Regardless of what you think about what the fit is here and what type of player Bo is going to be in New York, the Mets and the front office did not sit back and wait around for things to happen to them on the market. They were the aggressors here in getting Bo Bichette and stealing him from the Blue Jays and the Phillies, who were rumored to be seriously interested in holding meetings with Bo Bichette. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, Mets fans, wherever you are listening to this, whether it's live or whether it's on the replay, this is why reports that I talk about that come out are just rumors at the end of the day, because not one single reporter that I came across on social media was talking about Bo Bichette within the past month being linked to the New York Mets. I didn't see it. So things happen, backup plans. This is clearly plan B, right? Kyle Tucker was plan A. This is clearly plan B. But I respect the plan B because this is a good one, especially offensively. So, yeah, Darren, I agree. I mean, Baty in a Skubal or Duran deal, clearly it's not going to be just Brett Baty. I think they'd have to add onto it plus for either of those names. And, I always get, so the thing about Duran is that they're going to want another, well, maybe not, because they just got Ranger Suarez. So maybe they will back off of the ask for pitching. But it seems like the Red Sox are also playing hardball. And, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I see the Mets and the Red Sox being trade partners. I have to think about that for a little bit. I do. Because Duran would fit this team, make no mistake about it. There's an outfield spot waiting for him. I just don't know if I see the Mets and the Red Sox trading together. I could be wrong, though. I could be very wrong. Yandy Diaz is still out there. If we're talking about Polanco being a DH, adding Yandy Diaz would be a great addition. I know a lot of people are talking about Yandy Diaz. I've talked about Yandy Diaz on the channel earlier this offseason. I've talked about him last offseason when I wanted the Mets to really be aggressive in trading for him. If they are okay with parting ways with Brett Baty, I'm not saying it's going to be for Yandy Diaz, but if you can get Yandy Diaz and the Rays to give him up, That's also a question mark. That is a really good corner infield offensively, and another just awesome bat to add onto the top 5 of your lineup and push everybody else down. So, I like all the names. I mean, the Mets have options here. Let's not act like, I know it's January 16th and it's getting a little bit late in the game here, but if you're going to trade for a bat, this is the Mets free agent signing for a bat. If they are serious about adding one more bat, and I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, you've got names that you all are talking about right here. Stephen Kwan, I talked about him on a video way back when too. I've talked about Kwan. I like Kwan. That is a good defender right there. And he is plus with the bat, and he can be a leadoff hitter, which would mean that Bo Bichette would be your cleanup hitter, moving everybody down one. Yeah, they've got Kwan. There's Robert Jr. out there. There's Duran. There's Yandy Diaz. There's a lot of options on the trade market even still. But I think that if they are serious about adding another bat, I think Brett Baty is out of here. I really do think Brett Baty's out of here. And I agree. I'd rather have Stephen Kwan than Jarren Duran. I'm not sure if that's necessarily a crazy take, but I would rather have Stephen Kwan over Jarren Duran, because I think that the Mets would do better in the negotiations and getting a friendlier deal by engaging in trade talks with Cleveland rather than Boston. And that's why I was questioning whether the Mets and the Red Sox would be good trade partners in the first place, because the Red Sox are going to be asking for the moon for Duran, who has controllability left, all-star in 2024. A great ball player all around. I mean, he's coming off of a little bit of a down year in 2025, but a tremendous, almost 5-tool player. And they're going to be asking for a lot. So I just don't know if that deal gets done. I don't know. Yes, Darren. Now you're speaking my language. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Yandy Diaz would be another contact gap-to-gap hitter that can pop 25 home runs. Exactly. A good, true gap-to-gap too, because he's not an all-world home run hitter, but he's a elite hitter with some of the other metrics that you look at. And not only that, because I thought your comment originally said contract instead of contact, although you are correct. He is also another contract gap that fits into the plan of David Stearns. I think Yandy Diaz has one more year left on his deal? And that would be a guy that you bring on and you don't have to commit to at that position long term, which makes all the sense in the world for David Stearns to pursue. Let's see, Yandy Diaz, club option exercised, and he has a conditional club option for next year worth $10 million. I mean, for a bat of his caliber, that's a steal. $12 million on the payroll hit this year with the club option, and $10 million for next year. If the conditional club option metrics are hit, that's a steal. Absolutely a steal. I think Acuna, he'll be a bench piece for this team. I would rather see him traded, because I don't think that Acuna is going to get any better for the Mets in a bench role, but I don't think Acuna is playing outfield. I think they'd rather take the chance on Jet Williams coming up and being a contributor with his bat in the outfield over Luis Angel Acuna. Yeah. Getting to some more of the comments here. Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a large haul for Stephen Kwan as well. I'm not familiar with the Guardians and the ins and outs of their roster quite as much. Let's look at their roster real quick, just to answer any questions about what they might be asking for. And there have been rumors out there that they are willing to listen in on Stephen Kwan. So it's not like they're not open to trading him. Oh, their infield needs work. It looks like their infield needs work. I mean, it's going to take a lot, and this is probably why the Guardians are wanting to kind of retool their team and get a haul back for Kwan. but it looks like they have a lot of holes to fill. I mean, it's tough. I mean, who's their second baseman? I don't even know who their second baseman is. It says on ESPN that it's Daniel Schneemann. Not sure if I'm familiar with Daniel Schneemann. He hit 206 with a 636 OPS last year. You can send Baty in a deal for Quan, I guess, if you would like to, because he can play second base and you can sell them on him being the second baseman. I don't know the ins and outs of Cleveland's roster enough to give you all a trade package. I'd have to go ahead and take some time to think about that. I could see Acuna going in that. I could see Mauricio going in that deal. Is what I could see. I could see Mauricio going in that deal. But yeah, I think Stephen Kwan could be a possibility. Do I think it's a probability? Probably not. But we'll see. I think Robert Jr. is more of a possibility than getting a Duran or a Kwan. But if the Mets really want to go for it, I mean, Duran and Kwan are the guys to get. And they do need starting pitchers. So if the Mets really are interested in bringing in a big name starter, like a Freddie Peralta deal, they can afford to go ahead and add Freddie Peralta, or even Framber for that matter, if they want to go ahead and give him a 3-year deal if he's willing to accept it, and they can afford to get rid of a guy like Brandon Sproat. Because I think that the Mets, objectively, from what I'm sensing, and I agree with this too, because the projectability long term is a little bit more valuable in David Stearns' mind than what happened in 5 or 6 starts to end the 2025 season. Brandon Sproat performed a tad bit better than Jonah Tong in their cup of tea each at the major league level to end 2025. But I think everybody knows that Jonah Tong is the more highly regarded prospect than Brandon Sproat is, which is why a team like the Minnesota Twins were eyeing Jonah Tong in those Joe Ryan talks before they decided to pull him off the trade block. So I could see Brandon Sproat also being put out there in those talks with Cleveland if it ever gets to that point. So there's things to work off of here. There's contingency plans. There's plan A's moving forward. I think plan A's are probably Framber and Freddie. I don't know where Yandy Diaz fits into the equation of plan A or B. Plan A from the outfield perspective is definitely going to be Duran, maybe Kwan. But then you have your plan Bs and plan Cs. Just like Bo Bichette here was the plan B, you're going to have that via the trade route. My thing here now, what I'll leave you all with is that I don't know how aggressive, and that's why I'm skeptical about the Mets making any deal for names like Kwan and Duran. I'm skeptical of David Stearns really reaching into the depths of this farm system and going all in for guys like that. I'd be a little bit, let's see what is Stephen Kwan's contract. I'm just doing all the research here on the side. I know I talked about it before in a video. Let's see because I know he got a new deal, didn't he? No, he's still arbitration. So you've got multiple years of control left for Jarren Duran. You've got 2 years of control left for Stephen Kwan. He's going to be a free agent after the 2027 season, even, if we even have a 2027 season. I'm skeptical about the Mets letting go of these prospects for guys like that. But we'll see. I think the CBA has everything to do with what the Mets are doing right now and how they value these prospects moving forward. Because if you're talking about a guy like Stephen Kwan that technically has 2 years of control left on his deal, well, does he really? Because are we getting a season in 2027? 2 years of control could easily mean 1 year of control. And then you're out the prospects that you traded if you don't reach an agreement for an extension for those guys. So don't see the Jays winning the AL East. The Red Sox have gotten mightily better, but so have the Jays. I think they're still missing that bat. And I think Kyle Tucker was a huge blow to them, and so is Bo Bichette off the board now, which I think is why they're going to try everything in their power to try to convince Cody Bellinger to go over there and play in Toronto. I'm not sure if they're going to have a good time succeeding in that. I still think Cody Bellinger is going to go back to the Bronx. I think the Yankees with the lack of moves that they've had going on this offseason, I think that it would be a disaster for the Yankees to let Cody Bellinger walk. It would be a disaster for them. So, yeah. Anyways, listen, I love this deal. I love it for the lineup. We'll see what it means for the corner infielders. We'll see what it means for Brett Baty, but a good starting point here to really kick this plan B into action after the Kyle Tucker deal that sent him to LA. Mets have a lot more work to do. I'm not going to try to tell you all that they don't, but this is David Stearns and Steve Cohen saying, listen, we're not done this offseason. And at this point, I don't think they're done after Bo Bichette. They are adding at least another pitcher, and we'll see how they view Carson Bench and adding him into this lineup. Is he going to be an everyday starter in left field, or are they going to go out there and get a veteran to kind of plug and play there alongside Carson Bench and Tyrone Taylor? So I appreciate you all being a part of this stream. A lot longer than I really envisioned being on here. Almost an hour. We're at 52 minutes so far. So I appreciate you all being here. Again, smash those thumbs up buttons if you're new to the channel. I'll see you all for the hot stove alongside Rob tonight, 6:45 p.m. We are live on both of our channels. Make sure to subscribe, smash those thumbs up buttons. And I appreciate everybody that was active in the live chat. And hopefully I addressed most of the questions there and got your comments up onto the screen. See you all later. Let's go Mets. We'll see what David Stearns and Steve Cohen have up their sleeve moving forward. Peace.